I'm in the even smaller town of Risan, a little bit north of Kotor. Here, a large abandoned building. Whatever that is, or whatever it was, it didn't last long. Most interesting thing I've seen so far. I think this refers to Roman mosaics that Alexandra talked about. Looking at here, this area here was for guests. Apparently these mosaics have been taken up off the ground where they were, taken somewhere to a laboratory for restoration.
Yes.
And these are what they looked like when they were in situ, and presumably they will be returned in excellent shape for public viewing again. But this is showing a graphic here, like a vine leaf, if you will. This theoretically is for a chessboard game. Remember that one of the other explanations given was that these black and white diamonds indicate good and bad, man and woman, that kind of duality. These are called wolf's teeth in allusion to Romulus and his brother being fed by that she-wolf on the 7-5 hills of Rome. And these are oxen here. That's the portrayal of that.
La Brisa.
La Brisa. La Brisa. Over here, which was one of the owner's rooms, mosaics that were taken from that room. And what's interesting, as she points out, is that what they did was they put some kind of material on top, which is probably adhesive of some sort, and it attaches to the top of the mosaics, and then they're actually able to peel up the carpet, or the mosaics like it were carpet, and then take it to the laboratory and restore it. So Basilica says that the way they've done this roof, this was the height of what these rooms were like, which is an amazing thing. It had two parts here. One, that the rain was funneled down a tube, apparently.
Impluvium.
And compluvium was this area around here, which was like a pool, I guess. And it had the double roofs, as we see right there, which is interesting. These had in their old homes those same kind of an idea. Maybe it's one of those ideas that all cultures evolve.
The room was covered by labrises, and labrises are like moving, symbolizing warriors in the war. You can see the movement of the labris, going forward and back. Then first pattern, these squares are symbolizing uniforms, because they were wearing a large white uniforms with these squares here.
Ah, yeah,
bottom.
yeah.
Then a wolf's teeth, original, and a rosetta with 4 leaves. Here,
Yeah,
it is also rosetta, a flower.
but it's different,
This
isn't
flower,
it?
yes, it's different. Just like a variation of rosetta.
A variation on the theme. But you know, you'd think that artists who did this, that everything they did had a reason.
Yes,
you know?
I know.
We don't know what
Yes.
those reasons are, but
But I just know.
it would have been for servants here.
Yes. And
A morphe was found here. Looking like a squid. I never heard that before, but it makes sense.
amphora, Morpheus, amphora.
Amphora is the correct pronunciation. Good. Thanks.
These are remains from the roof, from a facade, but also same things, wolf teeth, then rosettas with 6 leaves and squares symbolizing uniforms.
Window, though, eh?
Window, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, roof window.
Yeah.
It was first found, it was like this. It was whole, but because of the Second World War, we are missing this part. Empire, because first it was just a small sun, like a town, like a Rome. Then the sun goes bigger and bigger, like Empire did. Then parts from sea fauna, a swimming fish,
Ah, yeah.
just round the edge.
Oh,
Then here is octopus, a second one there.
Ah, yes. Ah, yes.
Then war elements, a wolf teeth, then a labris in a simple way, and here also, and a vine tree here, finishing like a pick, like a sword, because you can see here sharp the edge. Then on these small chess fields they were playing game, but common game not decorate with things.
So this room was used by guests, and the floor was designed for games, which makes sense for guests, for entertaining them. And then notice right along here, she points out that these are probably symbols that were on the cards.
Cards, playing cards.
Like we would have hearts and spades on American cards.
Room. In each corner is a calamar squid, finishing with a one leaf. In the very center is a rosetta with 6 leaves, and sun is around, because sun is in each room, symbolizing empire. And you can see just a shadow of some previous war.
Previous
We
mosaic.
suppose that this wall here was restored during 60s last century. The lost color.
So notice that outside the darker is the light shadow of perhaps earlier mosaics, and perhaps some of this is a restoration from, you think maybe 18th century, 19th century?
60s last century.
And these have probably faded out from color. One explanation may be that this portion here that's shadowed may have had color painted on it, and then the paint itself faded, whereas this is natural stone and doesn't fade.
The owner for his free time, for his games. And it was connected to his sleeping room over there, and also just like a shadow of a previous war. Yes. And the most god of sleep.
Yes.
And he's like half a guy, half a god, with the wings. He's reclining in the position like Roman soldier, just reclining there on the pillow.
We're looking down on from the wrong way, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then in each big square there is a bow and arrow, and each arrow has this flower here, like a floral part. Then these 3 patterns are from uniforms. The first one, squares, are from Rome. Then a wolf teeth, and this pattern is from Athens, like their G here. And these are 2 swords to save family from bad ghosts.
Okay. And you wonder why. Was it color so expensive, or I don't know. So notice there that you've got a bow and arrow description here. The bow you can see, almost you can make out the handle also, with an interesting design. And then this is the string part with 2 flowers dramatizing the center point. And then this long device here is the arrow. Like a sarcophagus.
We don't know because it is not Romans.
And this wall was an original wall. Notice the squid design. So this is the god of sleep reclining, probably on an elbow, if we could see that better, like the Romans were pictured to do. What's also interesting is that certainly this is the owner's room, so you can understand why it would have a particularly more beautiful and colorful mosaic. But what's the significance of this pattern, this row of pattern down at the bottom that the others don't seem to have? And if you look closely, that then includes and asks the same question about this portion here that is faded now. I don't quite understand why a owner would have a big game board in his room. I wonder if it's an identical design as the others. So these boards have 11 square per side, whereas the owner's was 17 per side. Here's an old portion of a doorway entrance, that bronze square with the concave hole in it was for a door to hinge on. Here, a pretty little community park. St. Peter and St. Paul's Church. And I don't know, this is just a side chapel or one of those two churches. Here are the remains of a Roman city. I think it's called Careen. Notice the stones are anything but impressive, and that's because they apparently didn't have big stones, but that's kind of hard to believe when we're surrounded by these mountains. But here's some good-sized stones, so I'm guessing that where the stones were visible, they had good ones, maybe brought from Italy, and where they weren't visible, like interior or plastered, they used local stone like this. We're looking at an inside corner. I don't know if this was used for anything inside. The stone is pretty rough. My guess is it was all just filled in, not used. The only thing that was visible were the outside surfaces of this corner. But the fact that it was next to the stream makes a lot of sense. Again, I think this is 3rd century, in other words, 100 and some odd years AD. It's always interesting to look at something like this and realize that human beings lived here. But if those are Roman, notice how nicely done that wall is. That's pretty neat work. That's typical of Romans. They did superb work. And that must have been an impressive wall. As big as it is, the stones are. Presumably it went all along this edge, and maybe even gone farther. Who knows how large this city was. You can deduce from the continuity of these walls coming towards me that it went underneath me for who knows how far. There's evidence of sewer drainage. Here, interestingly enough, that one nice wall has another wall built against it out of that red stone or brick that we're used to seeing. And notice here we can see remnant of at least capstone on top of walls of that quality looking big rock. It's possible these lower stones are just foundational. And this is where the real floor was, where the big ones are. Here it looks like the wall comes along and then there's a break here. Perhaps the street or whatever it was had an intersection there, and another spur coming towards us to the left. And then the big wall continued on. And some of these stones look like paving stones. And that area looks like it's part of a pavement. Again, we can see that these walls continue to the right, so who knows how far the city extended. If that's a natural hillside, you have to imagine that it was also used. Whether this pile of rubble contains original Roman stones, I don't know, but I wouldn't doubt it. Look at that right angle there. I bet a lot of money that the stones we're looking at here came from that Roman town.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.